Hello and a warm welcome back to the Kilohertz Mercedes channel, and welcome to another how-to video. Now today's topic we're going to be discussing rust, which is the arch enemy of old Mercedes. If you have a model from the late 90s and the early 2000s, it's most likely that your car's going to have it around the wheel arches or on the lower sills. No, my car is no exception. With my 2005 C-Class, I've got a patch of rust on the side. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you exactly how you remove that, you treat it, you paint it and restore it. This is only for minor rust patches, however. If you have a large patch, you're going to need to get it done professionally if you have any holes or anything. So let's get started. So just to reiterate, this video is going to show you basic rust repair. Just enough to stop the rust in its tracks and to get your car looking presentable at the very least. First up, preparation and what items are required. Well, you want to get hold of a wire wheel attachment for an angle grinder or drill. This is the perfect tool to remove all the rust and leave only bare metal behind. Now don't even bother trying to tackle this rust with just sandpaper. It will not remove the rust completely and you'll be in the same situation in a month or so. Next up, some body filler to smooth out all the pitting which the rust will have caused, and also any imperfections which have been caused by using the wire wheel attachment. The obligatory health and safety gear. You don't want to get any rust flakes going into your eyes at high speed. And also make sure you have some thick gloves and ear protection when working with a wire wheel. And finally, some rust removal solution. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this is only for minor rust repairs such as the small amount I have here. Both of my rear arches are practically the same, with a small amount of rust forming and bubbling the paint underneath. Very common issue on this era of Mercedes. Now it's likely that this rust does continue under the side skirts, but as I mentioned, this is just a simple job for the visible parts. With that said, for this repair I am going to prise off the top level trim to expose the metal underneath, as it will make it easy to do the visible part, and there's likely going to be some rust hidden under this trim also. And I will of course clean up the mud off this newly exposed metalwork before we continue any further. Next up, it's time for masking off the area you plan to work on. This will isolate and protect the rest of the bodywork. Now the last thing you want is to damage another section of the car's bodywork. Angle grinders can kick back violently if you're unprepared. If you're not experienced with using them, triple or even quadruple layer the tape to prevent you accidentally scratching the good paint if this ever occurs. Very carefully scratch the surface of the paint without pressing down too hard with the angle grinder. Gauge the pressure which is required. Now the danger here, well apart from the spinning disc obviously, is that if you press down too hard it will gorge a hole or pit into the bare metal. Now this does take some skill, so take your time with this process, there's no hurry. What you're ultimately aiming for is something like this, with all the black spots completely removed and you're just left with shiny bare metal exposed. Now if you have any black pits or dots visible, these are still patches of rust and will return. It will come back, as long as you leave a tiny little section it will always come back. Rust is basically the cancer of metal, so you have to completely cut it out in order to completely eliminate it in its tracks. You can see here, especially on the right hand side, there are still a tiny couple of black spots which I will go over once again. And over on the other wheel arch, much the same. As you can see, all the black spots have removed and it's just left exposed metal. Here we have a bottle of rust Neutraliser solution. Now this is meant to convert rust into workable metal. By dabbing it on the metal it should turn any remaining rust blue. However, I do not agree with this as a fix-all solution. In my experience, all it does is temporarily convert the rust into metal. The rust will return. Now, I'm just applying it here, however, as it is a good indicator to show me any areas which I may have missed, as it will turn the remaining areas with rust blue. As you can see here, after only a couple of minutes, all the blueness is completely gone, confirming that no rust was left after you've completed doing all the wire brush work. Once that you're happy that all the rust has been completely removed, it's now time to apply some bodywork filler to cover up any imperfections in the metalwork. With a golf ball size of filler to a pea of hardener mixed together is all you need. You should have around 15 minutes or so to work with. Carefully and evenly apply this to the metal, and once it's been fully hardened you'll be sanding it down. So it's very important to only apply what is needed. Any extra you apply is just more work for you to have to do later to remove it back to metal. So make sure that you get it as smooth as possible, filling in any small holes or imperfections.
Keep going, yeah.
Once the filler's been applied, allow at least an hour before you start tackling the sanding process. So the next step is to sand down the bodywork filler to get it to a perfect consistency. Whether you do this mechanically, like with a sander which I've got here, or you actually do it manually by hand, any imperfections which you leave will be transferred through as soon as you paint it. So you want to take your time on this step and getting it looking as smooth and as perfect as you can. Now it's time to start with the spraying. Begin the process with a couple of layers of grey primer, allowing between 15 or 20 minutes between each coat. This is still in the drying process, but you can clearly see the seam welds from the factory. Once it's fully dried, I will slightly sand it just to ensure that there's no minor imperfections once again. Once you finish with the layers of grey primer, give it a couple of hours to fully dry before you repeat the process with the actual paint colour. For this car I'm using Mercedes 744 Brilliant Silver. A few more coats, allowing at least 20 or 15 minutes between each coat, should give you a perfect result. Just look at this, not bad, eh? As with anything, the key here is preparation and take your time. If you rush anything, it will ruin the whole process.
And then the final is the lacquer.
Now this is the hardest out of all the layers because if you do it too much it really easily starts dripping. So yeah, of all the processes on this repair job that's going to go wrong, it's highly likely to be the final lacquer process. The trouble is that if you spray too much on, you're going to start getting drips or bubbles appearing. So it's really important that you take your time, you just do one small layer, leave it for 10-15 minutes and then again. If you keep doing it at the same time, you will get drips and ruin everything. And here's my final result. If you can see, there are a few layers of bubbles there which I will have to kind of machine polish or actually manually polish out. That said, I am extremely happy with how this turned out. It's so easy to get the lacquering process wrong. And of course it's on a section of the car which is sort of hidden away. Far from perfect by a long shot, of course, but for a DIY job, I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out, and it should subside the rust for at least another year, maybe even longer. So this next step is completely optional, and it's just an additional step to prevent any further rust from appearing in future. Now I'm going to apply some underbody sealant to the thin edge of the bodywork which I've repaired. Obviously this depends on what section of the bodywork you're working on, but here on the rear arches it's very possible that the new paint and lacquer haven't been applied as evenly or as thick as on the flat sections of metal. After masking off the thin part of the respray, I've left around 4mm exposed, and with a small brush I will be applying a coating of underbody sealing across the entire edge. This should prevent any further issues with rust in future. Once fully dried, I removed the masking tape to reveal this very thin layer of sealant along the edge. barely noticeable, especially once you have the wheels back on the car. Just an additional level of protection which should stop the rust from appearing anytime soon. And that's it, the end of this repair. As I said at the start of the video, this is just a basic level DIY approach to tackling rust. Now it's not perfect by a long shot, but compared to leaving the rust gradually growing and making your car looking really scruffy, this is an ideal fix, especially on an area out of the way like a wheel arch, which is partially hidden by the wheel. So if you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done already, consider subscribing to the channel so you're notified as soon as I upload new videos and content. It's completely free. All you need to do is click on the subscribe button and bell icon. Until next time, thanks for watching. Cheers.